So I'd like to focus in this week's Torah portion, one verse, the scene of the burning bush. God comes to Moses, and we know Moses is very hesitant, he's skeptical, he has doubts, and as part of the dialogue he says to Hashem, the elders of Israel are going to ask me, what's your name? And Nachmanides says, this verse is begging for an interpretation. What does this mean? And the elders are going to ask, what is his name? Surely this doesn't mean, give me a sign, right? Because what's a sign, an ot, a mofet, a miracle have to do with a name? It's surely not going to help someone who doesn't believe. There's something else here. And he goes into sort of explaining different views, and for example, he brings about Rabbi Saadia Gaon and Maimonides that talk about, the idea that by God saying, I am what I am, the idea is, that God's existence is unique, it is the beginning, it is the end. It's actually rational explaining of God's existence. But Nachmanides says that that's not going to be enough for the elders. To know that we know God exists. That's not our problem. Our problem is that we're suffering. That's the issue here. Not a rational understanding that God exists, but understanding his existence in our suffering. And then Nachmanides says, and this is where, the sort of mystical view comes about. Nachmanides says, by talking about Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, I am what I am, Hashem says, there are various aspects to me. And one of the things Nachmanides does to explain this is he says, look at the name Elohim. Elohim, which usually stands for God's aspect of judgment, starts with the letter Aleph. Aleph, the first letter, symbolizes that it's a sort of inscrutable part of God. It's the part that we can't understand, the transcendental part of God, before everything is Aleph. But then take Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Tetragrammaton. The Yud symbolizes the emanation of the 10 Sfirot, the various aspects of God, when good things happen, when bad things happen, divine providence in its wondrous manifestations. And then take the name Aleph Daled, right? Hashem, Aleph Daled Nun Yud. He says we have at the start of this name, we have the Aleph, the transcendental God. At the end of this name we have the Yud, which is the emanation, and in the middle we have Daled Nun, Din, Dan. We have judgment. This is what Moses, according to Nachmanides, is looking for. He wants an explanation to be able to come to say, God exists within your suffering, God is with you. The same God that is there with you is the same God that's going to take you out. And this is a completely different dynamic approach, an approach that understands the suffering and says that God is transcendental but also immanent and here. A very different view to the commentators before. Nachmanides' thoughts on the Torah portion of Shemot. Shabbat Shalom.